That's
Here
a good
goes.
idea, Tim.
Okay. Hi, guys. We've got Ginger and
Hi.
James here. James's channel is the Energy Flow, the Energy Flow Tribe, James Rockhurst. And Ginger's channel, she's got her own channel now, and her channel is called Ginger Stone. So I'll link both of those below, so you can have a look at them if you want to. There's a couple of things that I want to say to begin with. Is what we're going to talk about tonight, which we haven't really pre-talked about, but James embarked on something that I really, really wanted to listen to about manifestation and about the incident in Ohio. So if we can start with that, James, over to you. And what were you saying about the Ohio thing? It's really good.
Right. The thing to appreciate with this reality, think of it like a champagne cork wire. It's one piece of wire, and it's twisted. So it's there's two polarities to that one piece of wire. So what this material realm will always play out is a metaphysical in a physical version, but with a twist to it. So what is actually being shown? I just looked at it and I thought, oh, hi, oh, and I thought, oh, 1-0. And I thought, well, with a nuclear mushroom cloud, it resembles a brain. This looks like a black brain. So it sort of references black rock, um, which is one of the two, along with Vanguard, that seem to own pretty much everything and anything. But what the message to humanity actually is check what path you're on, because otherwise you're going to derail and you're going to spill your essence out and it'll be a disaster. They're saying find the light and turn that black cloud to a sunlight, basically. This is like a metaphysical inside oneself, but they always play this out in a negative polarity. But they are actually guiding humanity in their weird, twisted way.
I've thought that for a long time. I've thought that what's going on is like them guiding us, but it's just that we get it all wrong in our interpretation and think that they're being mean to us or unkind to us or they're doing things to us. But I've thought for a long time that they're actually guiding us. They're actually showing us the way. I mean, even the catastrophe of the last 2 years and everything that went on, one of the things that they did do for us is they locked us down for a period of time. And a lot of us got paid for doing that. And they gave us time to actually think rather than just carry on with our boring, our mouse wheel, our kind of like routine that we got into, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, and no time to think because we're just so busy. And they locked all these families up. So we had no choice but to see life differently. And I don't think that was an accident. I think in a lot of ways they were doing us a favor.
I agree with that. That's exactly was my perception at that time. It continues to be my perception. I agree with James, although I don't assign any power to these large names like BlackRock, Vanguard. I know that they've um, assumed power and we have unconsciously handed it to them, but I've claimed it back. So those organizations don't hold any weight in my mind at all. I did see what happened. I do know that there's tragedies happening, but I think that we are causing it. I think that what we focus on is what we will manifest, what we will see. So, what we saw there in Ohio is a manifestation of what we think. And when we had this time to stop and be paid and stay home, and what we were experiencing was a form of freedom. And but we're so used to being on the hamster wheel, I call it, that we didn't recognize it when we got it. and we didn't claim it because we're not used to being free. And I guess that's where we're at right now. We're free, but we don't know it. And so, how do we take this newfound information that we have, this wisdom, and turn it into the story that we desire? I think
What
that's an important conversation.
what I wanted to talk to both you and James about was the video that you did on arrows of Pythagoras and the tarot about the 3, 6, and 9, the 2, 5, and 8. I wanted a
Yes,
clarification from you in relation to you said if you have a if you have no 2, 5, or 8 in your birth date. So uh,
correct.
in my case, I'm like the 9th of the 661 or 1961. So it's like 961961. So I got no 2, 5, or 8 there,
Correct.
but they add up to 5. It adds up to 5.
Oh, yes, I see what you mean.
So I
Yeah,
just
that
wanted you to
that five wouldn't.
clarify that. Is that what you meant? Like, oh, I've got no 1, 9 in my 1, 9, and 6, 1. I've got no 2, 5, or 8 in that. Is that what you meant?
Well, it's kind of like a tic-tac-toe chart. And what Pythagoras noted was that there's patterns. So if somebody has a 258, I can tell you that if they have those three numbers in a row, that denotes a character that is harmonious. They have harmony of emotions, unbiased, even tempered, in proportion, regular, regular, smooth. And a person that does not is maybe sensitive and can be emotional and can be a little shy, so it just shares a little bit of what we can be like. It gives a little insight into our personality, our will, our well, it gives a great insight into our ability to think, feel, and move. So to me, that's the spirit, the fire, the water, and the air, not in the right order, but it's those three elements that are present here in that chart. And it describes the crystalline figure that we are. We are simply liquid crystal.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and we've got this wonderful pattern. And when we're exposed to energy, like our own thoughts, um, we form into that which we imagine.
Okay, I agree. So you said that the arrows of Pythagoras video you did was in response to something that James did. Can you clarify what that was?
Well, my interpretation, I was trying to comment and I said, "Oh, Kim, thank you, because you made it so much easier for me to answer in a very complex way. It took me about 20 minutes to respond in a way that I felt provided a lot of insight into what I felt was James's question. I thought that he was asking why we didn't have sort of a Revolutionary War type energy during the years that added up numerologically to 2, 5, or 8. And so those years are all water years. What we have there is the 2 is a representation of the high priestess, and the 5 is the Hierophant, and the 8 is sometimes known as strength and sometimes known as justice. And it depends on which system of numerology you're looking at, or the Kabbalah, if you will. So I was trying to respond to that in terms of saying, well, it wouldn't have been there. We wouldn't have had revolutionary years that added up to 2, 5, or 8, because those are passive numbers. They're watery, emotional numbers.
What
We're
does
not
current
we're
where
not
are we currently? What are we in currently? We
We're
have
in fire. We're in fire. We're in the bottom of that chart. We're in fire. Number 7. We're in a 7 year, and that is the 7 days of creation. There's so many. 7 is a powerful number, and it's important. It's the chariot, and we've been talking about that a lot. I did look recently at the etymology of the word chariot, and it led me down quite a rabbit hole. We'll explore that another time. But yeah, it's quite important that we take the reins this year and not be controlled, because there will be controlling forces out there, and it would be easy to get um, pulled in, if you will, pulled into the macro, because there will always be an expression of what we're experiencing on a very micro level.
Okay. Have you got anything to say about that, James?
Yeah, what I actually did, I was listening to Jason on Archaics, and he was rattling off the Phoenix years, and I thought, hold on a minute. So 2040, so you add the 2 and the 4, and you get a 6. 1912, which is 12, which reduces to 3. Then going back to 1764, so that's 18, which reduces to a 9. And in the Anno Domini, you've got these Phoenix years every 138 years. The sum of the years has this pattern of 3, 6, and 9. But then when you get into the BC calendar, it switches to 417, and it does a repeat back pattern. And I took it right back to 3895 BC, which is year 1 on the Annus Mundi, because we're just about to go into 5917 on this 6,000 years. So I thought, let's see what the pattern happens with that. So now coming forward on the Annus Mundi, it's the same pattern, except it's going 147, 147. But when it changes to the equivalent of the Anno Domini, that also changes to 3, 6, and 9 as the sum of the years, the numbers in the years. So I thought, well, that's amazing. How can 2 completely different calendars both show this same pattern? But what I couldn't find was a 2, 5, and 8 sequence. So whether that is the one to come, because it's supposed to be the year, everything reduces by a third. So a pregnancy will be 6 months. We'll probably have a 16-hour day, a 240-day year, and all this sort of thing. So time will speed up, as it were. So
Wow.
this is also important to do the day count rather than the year count, because this is why everyone, and I can see how it's happened. It's like 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar, because they'd not accounted for the 360-day year up to 713 BC. Then all the calendars change. But what also came out of this, the Annus Mundi calendar, which is basically the Vatican, I knew about 1752, they skip 11 days because it was to bring things back into line with the vernal equinox. So they do use astrology. But in 1582, they removed 10 days. So it's like, well, the 21st of every month is when the star sign, the zodiac changes. But there's been a 21-day shift. So really, the start of the month would be where the change happens. So probably March the 1st is when we go into this new year of 5917. So
Okay. So where would that leave us in relation to the end date of 2012 being then? Because I had a fascination with that. Not being an end, but it'd been it'd been a marker of a shift in consciousness. I never thought 2012 was going to be an end. I thought it was going to be a convergence. I thought it was meant to be a
It,
convergence sort of thing. So where would
it was an ending to a belief system, I think, Kim. But it's also interesting.
I didn't see it as the end of the world, put it that way. I never saw it as the end of the world.
No,
I just saw it as the ending of one way, and the way I visualized it was all the trains coming into the station, and then after 2012, people leaving the station, but all leaving on different lines. So it was like a coalesced thought, coalesced experience, all living on different trains and different lines. So doing your own path from everything that you'd learned. But it's such a long time ago now. I mean, it's 11 years, 12 years, isn't it? 2012, 11 years. So the
I
10
feel like
year,
there was a lot
yeah,
of
there was,
propaganda, fear
get that.
propaganda
Yeah,
around that. And
yeah,
so, on that note, I would have to question the whole story.
yeah. Well,
Just like all the others, it's just a story. There's no true evidence. There's no true evidence. These are all stories, and the stories are perspectives. I sort of live with the Hermetic principles first. And, we know that there's people who make these claims, but throughout history, we've had Holly weird actors, and somebody recently suggested that a lot of the musicians like Mozart and that group all came out around the same time, and they all seem to have an orphan history, and they were taken and molded into what this isn't this the same story that we have in Hollywood, so these are influencers, and yeah, what were we being influenced by?
good
That's a big
question.
question I have about
Yeah.
music, because when you look at the word muse and lyrics, and if you look at the lyre has a yoke shape to it. Now you're talking about the cattle. The thing that we put around the yoke is what we put around the cattle to control. So the music, the lyre, becomes a controlling device
Not
because of
only
the yoke and that common thread.
not only that, but you've got the word liar, which can be spelled
Correct.
Lyre or Liar, liar.
That's right. That's right. And I think music is very curious to me because sound, the word and the tone, the sound and the stone, or sorry, the sword and the stone. It's
Oh,
really making a lot of sense to me that we've been influenced by these musicians, and it creates a wave of energy that we align with.
can
And
I
we just get into that flow. And
can
this is
I
how we become sheep like and follow.
can I just say one quick thing about that? After we left the
Yes,
video the other day, that word that
yes,
you said, I'm going to do this on like really big print, right? So you saying um the sword in the stone, right?
correct.
In the stone. And then you said you take the S off because the S has only quite recently been introduced into the language, and James might know a little bit more about this. So you take the S off
Yes,
that sword in the stone, which was what you were talking about,
correct.
and you end
Yes.
up with the word in the tone. Um,
Correct. And we know now how powerful our words are. If you look at the device that they used to use to shut us up, it's also used to control the horse. It's a bridle, it's a scold bridle, and it looks like a torture device. You can see how powerful our words were. You see images of even drawings of women mostly who, our words are powerful. They wanted to control our tongue, and they put this device in it's called a bridle. A scold, 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 bridle. Our words are so powerful. The spoke in the wheel. Thank you, Kim.
that was the other thing was the spoke in the wheel, and when we were looking at the Orea Linda um, Yule and the actual creation of the language from the six spoke wheel, like the A, the
Yes,
B, the C, the spoke. It's
it really
mind
jumped.
blowing, mind blowing.
Correct, correct.
All right.
We're learning, and when we drop those S's and sometimes put an F in there, the F often fit and was replaced with S's. I
Yeah,
notice in a lot of old documents,
yeah.
but otherwise, I think they just sort of, I think it was deliberate. I think it was to throw us off.
So there was something about Genesis, was it, that you wanted to ask James? Was it? Um, what was the thing that
Genesis.
you? Was
Well,
it
we were talking
Genesis?
about salt the other day, and I find that quite an interesting subject. We're looking at, when we look at the high priestess, we're looking at Mother Mary, and Mother Mary is the salt of the earth, if you ask me. Like it's all connected. and the Scorpio, the Aquarian, water again. So the water man, the Scorpion, the Aquarian, the Leo, and the Taurus is salt. And yeah, I found that really interesting. And I noticed that there's another anagram in the word earth when I was trying to break it all down and really look at it a lot further. Um, there's another anagram there. We know that earth is an anagram for heart, and but it's also an anagram for hater. And so I'm looking at it in terms of like these mineral salts that we've been talking about. And really, it's the crystal salt, it's the salt, it's who we are. Everything is connected to salt. And somebody mentioned, I think one of your viewers, Kim Bobcat, mentioned something about it being a currency. And it really is. And that made me think, well, no, wait, current and in electricity. And you were asking about that, right? And so, yes, it is electric. And if you search for salt technology, you'll discover that lithium batteries are now being replaced with salt batteries. And you can't tell me we didn't have this technology long ago. I'm so really still very curious about that and how important it is for us to have it because it really does light us up, especially our mind. And most of our minerals are depleted. We don't eat properly, it's all about the salt. It's about who we are. It's us. And our
Just
lack of light is causing a lot of the problems that we're having today. It's creating derailments and it's creating all kinds of crazy scenarios that we are the creators. We are imagining it.
okay. We'll let James say something because we haven't let him talk.
Yeah, I know. Please, I go in many directions, and my mind has been gifted this week. It's been a flood of information, if you will, which I think is what our flood will be at this time.
What you got
You've
to say
got
about that, James?
you've got perspective. So going back to childhood, you're now say 2 years old. You've mastered walking. You're out in the garden, just looking at everything, and you're curious. So you wander over, and it's actually towards stinging nettles. Now, one of your parents will be saying, "No, don't go over there." Now, to the child's perspective, it's like horrible, mum or dad or whatever, because it's like you're spoiling my fun because the child is unaware of the danger. So, from the child's perspective, they think that parent's being horrible. So, what if comparing our mortal perspective to our immortal perspective, it's the same pattern or relationship? So, what we consider as good or bad from an immortal perspective is in, is neither one or the other because we're sort of making judgments on things. But I looked at I am. So I'd write the I at the top and then the A and the M underneath. But what happens when you bring I am into one? You get this, hopefully it'll show up. If you overlay the I, let's try and do this. If you overlay the three, you've got the I, you've got the A,
Wow.
and you've got the X. But you've
Wow.
also got XI, which is 9 and 11, the trauma center. You've also got the cross here in the middle. You've also got Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, How I Wonder What You Are, Up Above the Clouds So High, like a diamond in the sky, which is the
Wow.
third eye. With regard to manifestation, you've got an entire generation to thank for what has happened. That those that like playing interactive computer games, and they've probably collectively said, "Oh, I'd like to be able to do this all day and just order food whenever I need it." They've got exactly all that, and you've got a whole generation, normally men, who are fighting for computer and country, answering the call of duty. So,
Yeah.
and you can see this sort of pattern with everything in life. It's just how many people were perplexed by the sudden amount of perspex at every shop counter in every store that suddenly appeared? It's like 2020 is an expression of having clear vision. So it's like, I can see what they're playing here. Most people just can't see through that perspex and realize, because from a business sense, you don't manufacture something unless you know you've got a customer, because it's going to cost you money to get all the raw materials you need to manufacture that product. But if you haven't got a customer to sell it to, you're going to go out of business. So that perspex must have been planned ahead of the event.
Right.
But it's basically saying lockdown is meditation. The mask is shut up and just go inside, sit inside yourself, be just, you're just being instead of doing. This reality is getting you chasing. Yeah. You're always doing. There's no time to think. So we're in a world of 2 days, or today's world. There's a conscious one and an unconscious one when you're asleep. So you've got 16 hours and 8 hours on average. So if you split those 8 hours into half doing and half being, it allows you to process everything that's going on around and weighing things up. My perspective on artists, I mean, people have pointed out things in songs and always a coded message, and I've heard songs many times, and then suddenly it's like bing. Oh, I had this happen yesterday with a song called Savior Machine on an album called The Man Who Sold the World by David Bowie. And would you believe it starts, President Joe once had a dream. And I thought, well, how many presidents have had a first name of Joe? And basically in this song, the Savior Machine says, please don't believe in me. It screamed in its boredom, I might kill you all. So it's basically saying, if you give over to this machine, which is, you could say, is organized religion,
or AI in general.
Yeah.
For a long time, I've thought that AI is fine as long as you are not a participant, but using it as a witness. That kind of thing, rather
I agree. I agree with that. And I think it's really useful in so many ways. And like we're using it right now. But I think one of the problems, it's not just religion, it's the whole form of the act of rationing or trying to reason with this experience that we're having. It's not rational, it's metaphysical. And we can see patterns in this metaphysical experience that we're all having that no one can explain. You know, we have feelings, we're sensitive, it's energetic. We are electromagnetic beings of light, and we receive and express a vibration. And we create the vibration with our thoughts and what we put our energy into.
Okay, I'm going to change the subject for a minute because there's something I want to talk to you both about. James and I, on a previous occasion, have had discussions about the importance of the significance of, say, the street name that you live in, or the name that you were given at birth, or the significance of some personal information about you. And I know that Nigel, for instance, gave a lot of emphasis on this, and could prove how all of these numbers were interlinked to him or special to him. But the question I've got is, why is it with like numerology, or say these street names and stuff, why is it significant? Like,
I think it's only, well, what's significant about it is the pattern, and people start to notice that there's a pattern, and the pattern is an energy, it's a vibration. So each character in the tarot has a number and a vibration, and it's describing more than a person. It's a whole There's more happening. It's not just about a person. The card describes far more. It's about our element. What element is ruling over that card? Well, for the magician example, for example, that's fire. It's all about taking action. And so there's every element of who we are creates the entire experience.
Okay, James
So
is
it's quite
sitting.
complex and
Let
people will see patterns.
let James answer that too, because he's got
Yes.
something to say
I,
about it.
I was laughing because I just happened to see the time was 11:44. Now it's gone to 11:45, which is a 9/11.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
The way I can't say I wrote a book. I was the vehicle that actually put you to bring it into the physical. It's called Nothing and Half Genesis for the Aquarian Age, and I discuss about, take for example, a painter. Now, a painter has a medium of oils, canvas, and brushes. But what if the artist is the medium? If you take away the ID, so you're left with EA, so that's the seed that just comes into the head.
Mhm.
It's personified with an ID of a particular artist. They probably don't know what they're even writing. It's just they're inspired to write a song or create something, because it's all about artist creativity. Our Father who art in heaven. The heavens are in between the two temples. Um, it's a living God. So where would a living God reside? Well, it must be in all of us, because you have this elaborate, what looks to be this elaborate plan, and people have said about there must be something. Well, for this elaborate plan to be there, that must mean, therefore, there is something in humanity they don't want us to discover, and that is this power to co-create. That is all it is, because you want to change the world, it starts within oneself. There is no war in the world, there is no conflict, and I'm not talking about the external world, I'm talking about the world in here. Everything is in harmony and in balance, because
As we choose,
I,
as we choose.
I challenge anybody to try and insult me. I've had people throw things like English. It's like, oh, cheap shot. So you think I identify as being English? Well, looking at the track record of England and wherever it's gone in the world, you think I want to identify with something that's plundered and pillaged wherever it's gone? I will not associate with these banners. It's like there's nothing I'm attaching to, so therefore there is nothing for me to defend. It's like, well, it's just your opinion. So,
Yeah, there's millions of versions of us. I mean, for every person that we have an experience with, they now create another version of us. And nobody knows the true us, not even us. We're still wandering around in the desert trying to figure out who we are. But part of the problem is that we don't have the lamp lit. And to do that, we're needing the stones, we're needing the knowledge, we're needing the mineral salts. And I'm really glad that you bring up art, because I think that it's that creative flow that we get into, that stream of consciousness that is so high vibing and creative. Now we're in a higher realm, and it's a threat. There's no fear there. You forget your fears and worries. And I think one of the challenges for creators and artists today is that they are creating for the money, and their true passions are still hidden. So we're still revealing who we are and learning about our powers and the importance of being authentic in this time,
Let me just
unapologetic and authentic.
let me just say that during the going back here to say the 90s, where spiritual stuff was quite new, and you used to go to these mind body spirit festivals, right, in the 90s, and you'd go in there and the energy in there would be absolutely magnificent, you walked in there and you'd feel energized, and it was a sensation. It was like walking into a space that you knew, where all the people were gathered together for a purpose. And then
Mm.
as time went on, they attributed a lot of money to this. They attributed a lot of profit towards these things. And 20 years on, you walked into one of these things, and you could feel the greed of the need for somebody to be paid for being there because they'd paid a lot of money for their stall or whatever. So you walked in there and it had a completely different feel to it, like a hungry feel, like an energy of that there was a lack or something, there was something missing. But it was a completely different energy because it was overcome specifically by the need for money as against just benevolently wanting to be a healer or share whatever it was that you knew.
Restricted. We've
Yeah.
we've restricted ourselves because money is a powerful form of control, and we consent to its power. And I think it's important for us to find the happy middle. And some of us have to go and do things like you know maybe whatever it is that you have to go and do, you have to go and do it. You need to earn a few dollars to pay for your bills, or and like you said, Kim, that problem was wiped out for a lot of people. Now the problem is apparently getting people to go to work. But I think part of that is that we're flat, and we have to get to that higher vibration away from all the fear. And so the light in the eyes, like we were talking about the other day, the salt, all of that. It's not low salt. It's like really get your body into the salt water if you can. Energize yourself, bathe in Epsom salts, bring the light back, and create for the reasons that there are no reasons. It's pure spiritual. It's the exact opposite. And so it's not for money. And yes, there might be some expenses associated with displaying your craft and, sharing it with others. So be it. It's just part of the music. Let it be part
But
of the background.
all three of us are creators in YouTube channels and stuff like that, and none of us. I mean, we're a long way from making monetizing it or anything like that. We don't do it for those purposes. We don't do it for those reasons. We do it because I don't know, we've got something to say and maybe somebody to listen to what we've got to say.
It's a very different energy. It's pure, and I like it a lot. I really love the energy that you and James bring because it's authentic. And you give credit where credit is due. Where I see so many creators, as though yes, you're part of the dream, but there are other people dreaming this dream also. And find your flow, find your energy tribe like James has, and keep your vibe as high as you possibly can, because why not? We can make that choice. And but like nutrition is a big part of that. We talk a lot about the minerals and the importance of knowing who you are and in terms of where you are on the wheel astrologically, and learning what mineral is associated with your placement on the wheel, because we're missing at least three upon our arrival. And if you start to look at the symptoms of those deficiencies, um, it's no wonder we're a society full of disease. We can't have ease where there's a deficiency. It's like expecting a plant to thrive if it doesn't have all the right nutrients. And I don't think this is a big secret. I think that this was once well known, and but our food and our light has been dimmed. And I think it's quite important for us to know that, and take quick steps to get the light lit. And that means bringing joy into your heart, acceptance, whatever you need to do to have a high vibration.
All right, let me just intervene for a second. So, what I was saying before about the importance of knowing, like, why your name is significant, or breaking the letters down of your name, or understanding why it's significant that the street you live in and what have you. James, you said something to me about that a couple of months ago, and I thought it was totally intriguing. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, there's nothing in this world is an accident or a coincidence. That's just the sort of mind will try and make sense of it. That saying about we're always the last to know. The heart and the body will know ahead of the mind. Most, unless it's a structural problem like you've broken a bone, every dis-ease is created by the mind. The conscious mind will talk in feeling to the subconscious. So the conscious mind is really the divine masculine principle, and it should be playing the part of the lover. The subconscious is the ever-loving wife that is impersonal, and if you feel want, it will just give you more want. But what happens is it causes changes in the chemicals in the body, the amount of serotonin or adrenaline or cortisone, and the body is now sending you, it's like a fire alarm. There's a pain somewhere. That's the body telling you that there's a problem that you've created with the mind. But we're encouraged to suppress and put a bandage, a sticking plaster answer. It's like, oh, I've got a leaking roof. Oh, I'll stick a bit of tape over it. Job done. It's not got to the cause of the problem. It's dealing with the outplay end. And this is what this reality is all about. We've got a problem with pollution and plastics. Well, hold on a minute. Who's taken away glass bottles, which was the perfect recycling, and given us plastic, which is throwaway? And now it's like we've got a problem with plastic. But the options were we were forced down this route, and you can see it with small businesses have been pushed out. So you're getting less and less choice. But even in that sort of famous message that's doing the rounds, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, do we own anything anyway, really?
Well, and I think the goal is to be lighthearted and not take anything with you, so you don't want to own anything really. I mean, you want to just let it all be, and you're only responsible for your avatar.
Well, John McEnroe, the tennis player, kept giving humanity a huge clue, and it became a saying, you cannot be serious. And you have to ask, why did the media focus on that so much as a reason? Because they could have just ignored that. But no, they made a big thing out of it. That's for a very good reason. It's saying don't take life seriously. Alan Watts puts it across really well. Life is like a dance. It's not about getting from one place to another. It's about enjoying the moment in the present moment. We're a presence in the present. But the mind will always create problems to try and solve. So it's like, oh, tomorrow I've got to pay this bill, or I've got to do this, or what if this happens? What if that happens? And we're creating all these illusions that most of them don't even come true.
I know.
That's the gift of this year. We have both horses in our hands. We have control of the reins. We're taking that. We're going to be unbridled when this is over. Those reins are coming off. But it's about bringing the balance. It's about being the charioteer. It took a lot of courage to get into that thing. Think about the amount of courage that it took for that individual to take the reins and travel across the unpaved terrain. That was quite a challenging task. You had to hold on tight, but at the same time, you had to be prepared to go with the flow and the energy of the horses and allow them to take you. Now, that is the masculine and the feminine brain that you're speaking of. That's the antipathetic and the empathetic, this parasympathetic nervous system that you're describing. I have a belief that wormwood might be of interest in bringing balance, and it might explain why it's a forbidden drink. It's absinthe, and you're not, apparently it's really bad for us. And some people will say, well, but they took the green fairy away. when they did that, they took the green fairy away. To me, the green fairy represents the heart energy. It's about being right in the middle. And that's where I think we are able to find the most comfort and ease.
But
Should
but
life not be exhilarating? You can have exhilarating times if that's what you choose, but you have to expect that there's an opposite to that and provide for that. To expect to be on a hamster wheel 40 hours a week without fail is ludicrous. You're going to put the body in a state of disease because now you're stressing it by not abiding by the laws of nature. What goes up must come down. There has to be a period of rest. We're not in the flow. If we expect to do the same thing every day, then we're in somebody else's flow.
The clue is given in two of the air signs. Libra is shown as a blindfolded woman, so it's all in the feeling, the balance. The, the masculine one is Aquarius, but it's not a male, it's representing all mankind. It's an air sign, but it would imply that it's water. It's an outpouring from the heart. That's what it's really saying, because this jug is sort of under the arm. It's roughly level with the heart. And if you look at traditional non-Western cultures, it's always the woman that carries the water, normally in a jug on the head. But the female body is the water carrier that brings in the new life in the physical realm, which starts in darkness within the womb. So, but people get fixated on just the surface level of everything. This is the trouble. They're not. They don't even. They don't even stop and consider when they ask a question. They get an answer, but 9 times out of 10, that question is not answered. So a perfect example of this is health and safety for security reasons. Well, the question should come from that. Well, whose security? Whose health and safety? Community standards. Well, whose community are we talking about? It's assumed that it's our community, but we sign up for terms, which is time and conditions. We have to have conditions in the world. We're in balance. If you go too high up a mountain, there's not enough oxygen. If you go too deep in the water, the pressure gets too great. So we're in this middle realm.
the
Well,
medium,
we're in
we're in the medium.
control. Yeah, we're controlled. We're in the middle
That
already. So I guess that's part of the problem is that there's a lot of control on us. So we're not able to express our creativity and, be in that biorhythmic flow of energy. So there's a lot restricting us.
okay. So you were saying before about wormwood, and why did you bring wormwood up? What's the significance of that right now? Because I'm not aware
Well, the
of.
significant it feels very significant because it's one of those things that's hidden.
But
It's one of those things that was taken from us. So it's
wait,
it's important that I think
I
we
just want you to fill in that
explore it.
bit. What are you talking about? Wormwood was taken from us. Is that what's happened?
Well,
Because
yes, it was made illegal, and there's a part of the plant, the thujone. I'm just learning this, so but as I recall, it's thujone, thujone. That part of the plant is a hallucinogenic. They're claiming. Now, as I understand it, Nicholas Culpeper, famous. Well, this gentleman is responsible for um, Culpepper's Complete Herbal. He took on Big Pharma long, long, long ago. And I don't know how I feel about the gentleman. He's got noble ties, he's got some royalty. And so I don't know overall, but he does seem to he represented the rebellious herbalist. And so he took on that industry and called it what it is. He said, you call us witches because he was on trial for witchcraft. He says, you call us witches, but meanwhile, you're using the ingredients that you're using are really sketchy and alarming. And, you're using parts of animals and, we won't even try and describe what they're doing with the products that they put in their the materials that they put in their products and then give to us. that they expect to cause any kind of good response with. It doesn't, but plants do. And so he has very little to say about a lot of plants. But when he got to wormwood, he has pages and pages. And that was a big tell for me that it's an important plant that he had a lot to say about. And part of it was the battle that he had with the industry about bringing it forward and allowing people to have it. And I understand then at that time, so in the 1880s, everyone was using it. It was a powerful, and that's an important year to take note of. In the 1880s, everybody was sipping on it, but it was a threat to the wine industry. So there was some propaganda created about how dangerous this drink was. So there's many people still that will scoff at that. And it's got about as powerful of an hallucinogenic as coffee, but it is an anti-parasitic and a powerful one, and it's an important one. It's in the Bible, and its Latin name is Astaria.
You know what? You know what's interesting is you were initially talking about wormwood there, and the only, I mean, I wasn't even aware of wormwood being a herb. The only awareness I had was wormwood in the Bible as a comet,
Yes, and I didn't know that.
a comet carrying pestilence. It's in Revelation or something, and it's about a
Yes.
comet that comes through that carries a pestilence that makes water undrinkable for 3 days, and that anybody that drinks the
No, that,
water for 3 days is then poisoned. But I didn't know about this other story that you were talking about where they banned this herb. They banned it on the public market, have they? Right.
well, it's available now. They've revoked the ban, similar to cannabis, and so anybody that has explored cannabis would know that it is actually quite beneficial if grown and used properly. But it is quite dangerous, unfortunately, with the way that it's manufactured. It's been heavily produced and tampered with. So I wouldn't say that everybody's getting a good substance, but it is a very important plant to us. And,
Yeah.
we have these deficiencies and we are simply plants with complex emotions. You know, our sex organs are down, hidden. The sex organs of a plant face up and collect the sun. And, it's some plants really, we are synchronistic. We work in harmony. We work together.
Okay.
We rely on them as much as they rely on us.
Right.
Some of them.
James, you got anything to say about
Yeah, straight away comes to mind. I think it's a prison. I think it's in London called Wormwood Scrubs.
Wow.
But also, if you swap around and think of woodworm and what that does to wood, it creates holes. It makes the structure fragile, and eventually it will disintegrate. So they always have this play on words with things and reverse things because it's like if you look in the mirror and you say, "Who am I?" the reflection will say, "I am who," which is really another question. But the mirror itself will tell you, "I who am," and who is what is a thing that's in this equation definitely, as in
Oh,
World
yes.
Health Organization.
Oh, yes. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, that's interesting. Wormwood scrubs. Well, because it was used as an anti-parasitic, that's really interesting. You said that was a prison, James?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
prison,
I
a
think
very
it's
famous prison. Yeah.
Okay. I wondered about calcification. So, because we now know that the pineal gland is so important to us, well, the whole body is important, but the pineal has a special job, and it seems to have been under attack, or at least we've heard that story. It's a story. I prefer to think that we can overcome these stories by just saying, nah, nah, not for me, you know. But if we say yes, yes, that must be true, then we're going to be victim of whatever story we subscribe to, whether it's, aliens or whatever story it is. We're going to suffer suffer the effects of the fear, or the joy of aliens.
I
I'm
got
not sure that there's any joy
I got
around
to
that subject, but
I got to share something with you here. I just looked at Wormwood Scrubs, right? Have a look at this. Look at the shape of it.
oh, oh,
Hold
is
on.
it a circle?
Oh, sorry. Oh no. Hold it. Oh, okay, I've gone somewhere weird. You see the shape of it?
Oh my goodness, the high priestess. I can't help it. So this is very important.
It's a six-spoke wheel.
It's so important, folks. And you see the towers on the other side. Is that part of it, Kim? All I can see is
That's the
towers
front.
all
This
around
is
it.
the front entrance. That's quite a
That's the
famous.
entrance.
That's the entrance
So
there.
that reminds me of the high priestess.
Yeah,
And wow.
and
And
then
then the inside is obviously the six-spoked wheel. This is incredibly important to us. So this star came and destroyed many and made the waters undrinkable, so they say. Um,
I can read that out to you because I had
I
that. There you go. It said
I I feel that it
the
destroyed
word
many parasites,
the
and that's
word
what we need now.
the word wormwood is mentioned in the New Testament, but it appears 8 times in the Old Testament, each time associated with bitterness, poison, and death. The Revelation
Hmm.
passage may not be saying that the star falling to earth will actually be called wormwood by the inhabitants of earth. Rather, wormwood was well known as a bitter herb in Bible times. So, by naming the star wormwood, we're told that its effect will be embitter the waters of earth, so much so that the water's undrinkable. It won't be a simple matter of a bitter taste. It will literally be poisonous. If drinking the water is unavailable to 1/3 of the Earth's population, it's easy to see how chaos and terror would result. It's just, I mean,
Yeah,
I can link that, but um, just the point that
its Latin name is Diana.
really,
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, it's just I want to say it properly. The lighting is a bit challenging here. Artemisia. Sorry, I wasn't saying it properly. To
Artem-
me, that speaks Diana. Artemisia.
Artemisia.
Artemisia. And I don't know why it's star. To me, it speaks Diana. It speaks about the divine feminine. And they talk about the waters, which also is our divine feminine side, the feminine side of the body, the mind. And it's the 258.
Okay, I had a situation a few years ago where my car was parked outside the front of my house. And I got up in the morning, and it was when do you remember those computers that were really big in square boxes? Do you remember computer screens that were big square boxes? Somebody had chucked a computer at the right hand side of my car, and the right hand side of my car was all stove in. Like it really did a lot of damage to it. And I was trying to work out the time what it meant metaphysically. This is about, this is more than 20 years ago. But I was trying to work out metaphysically what it meant that somebody chucked a computer screen at the right hand side of my car. Now, I was of I thought that at that time, I was guessing that any type of damage to your car was had a metaphysical meaning to it. So if you had a flat battery, it meant that you were low on energy. If you had a front end collision, it meant you weren't looking where you were going, you weren't paying attention, and it was just like wake up calls, things going on with your car. But I could not for the life of me work out why the right hand side of my car was stove in. And to me, it was like I wasn't paying enough attention to the feminine aspect because it was my right side.
Well,
So
because we suppress that back to the bridal. The bridal comes to mind. It's all been suppressed. Like to me, the bridle, it just simply denotes the danger of our words and the power of our language, the spoken word. And they did not want us, especially women, the feminine, to speak. Um, so I think that you're right. And I think that it's our nature to be silent because we've been traumatized and we're all dealing with still the lingering effects of this generational trauma. And so it's our nature now to disappear into the AI where we're not thinking and feeling. We're just sort of in the void. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like a really loud plasma ball of chaos at times. It's a very uncomfortable experience at times, and as I say, it's useful, but I wouldn't want to have to sit in it. I wouldn't want to have to be with it 24/7. I try to remove myself from it as much as possible. I don't sleep near it. I just try to give myself a little bit of space away from it because it's such a
from
demanding energy.
from AI
AI.
from AI.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Because it's
I
a
don't sleep
chaotic
near it
field.
either.
No, no, it really interferes with the waters, the emotional waters. So it's that invisible vibration that we can't hear. And it's sending always signals. We know that. We know that electromagnetic frequencies, well, we're magnetic. So what does it do to us to be around that kind of technology? I would say that it really, like you said, the TV being thrown at your car, the right side, I think it was asking you to allow the flow of energy to be that stream of energy to be brought to your attention, you know, over instead of the TV. Why would a TV be thrown at your car? How peculiar. But like, if that's what happened, I don't know. The TV
It was a
represented information, I feel,
it was
and
a
to put your
compute it,
information
it,
on the
it,
right hand.
it wasn't a TV. It was a big computer screen, and
Oh,
the only thing that I could figure out was that somebody had been moving house and had fallen off the truck or something.
oh,
That was all I could figure. I mean, I couldn't see why or how anybody could use the force to throw a computer screen at my car. I I
no.
I thought that maybe somebody come past too fast and it had fallen off and bounced or something. Anyway, James, what do you think about that? Do you agree with what I said about the cars and about damage?
Yeah. Everything is sort of presented to us. It's talked about in spirituality about attuning, and there's that saying about when one door closes, another one opens. If you're on the ideal food source level, i.e., low vibration, so your options open to you are suicide or overdose. There's no way out, so you've taken the easy option and gone for the lowest fruit on the tree, as it were. This interactive field will give you something that matches your frequency. But if you tune to a different broadcast, the physical reality doesn't change, but you'll get a completely different interaction with the external because we are co-creators. This is the power that's hidden from us. So this is what they've done. This is basically what they've used as a basis of this gender fluidity. Where with that you take the physical and you deny the physical and say it's something else. Whereas the metaphysical is you're denying the facts of that are being presented to the five external senses, and you rewrite that and you impress upon the subconscious completely different. You deny that external reality of, oh, I'm facing this or I'm facing that. And you now take control of it. And it's like, the way I look at everything is the world is a stage. So I want to be the best actor I can be on this stage. So I'm going to look very carefully at every script that is presented to me. And by script, that can be a situation with people. And do I want to appear in some low budget reality show? Because they show you this in Hollywood. If an actor takes a bad script, that's the death of their career. That they're criticised and they won't get the parts in subsequent films because they've been slated by bad reviews and things. But it's up to us to individually review the script that's being offered, and it's like, well, I mean, we had one in March 2020, and I thought, well, that's an awful script. I'm not accepting that. So, and I've used this. I found myself in court. So it's like, well, I'll just put this same thing into operation. I will act the best, most convincing part, and I will walk out of that. And I did.
Yeah.
And I even did. I thought, let's take a leaf out of there. So on the final time I went, I sat in front of the dock. So I sat there with my hands like that. I did the Donald Trump thing, and I thought, let's see if the judge picks up on that. I don't know whether he did or didn't, but it seemed to work because I wasn't feeling the intimidation or the fear of the presentation of, oh, I'm in a court, because you are caught when you're in a court. There's only one door in and out, and it's guarded. So I'm in a situation where I now have to act, and I have to present myself in a particular way so I can get the outcome that I want. But what was beautiful about it, the time before, they had these computer screens and the sequence of the home screen that changed 3 times. I thought, I can see what this is telling me. This is interactive. It's like I can take that message from those home screens, and that's telling me next time you're in here, you're walking out free. And that's what happened. I forget what the pictures were. I think it was like a landscape of water with a pier. So I took that as, well, it appears to be this, but I've just got to walk these waters of maritime law.
Yep. Yep.
It's
yep.
like
I'm
Jesus
glad you
walks on the water.
I'm glad you said maritime. I hope to talk about that one day, maritime. Sorry, James. Just jumped. I'm sorry. My
No,
apologies.
well, this is the thing with all of this. You can go off on so many tangents. I mean, if we went back to music, I could talk about the 7 keys and the 7 tones and the 12 major and minor keys. I mean, is it a philosopher's tone or a philosopher's stone?
The sword and the stone, the word and
Yeah.
the tone. Yeah, very cool. The maritime, mare, M-A, feminine, waters. So the maritime admiralty. So the word admiralty has my attention. What do you make of that? Admire, is what I'm getting. What do you think of that? Give it some thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maritime admiralty and then the law, you know. So the maritime seems quite a curious word. Like I'm getting Mary, Mars, I, time. So much to see there with those words.
Well, a Mary time, it's a coming of age. When 21, when you'd be able to marry without the permission of any of the 4 parents in the 19th century. One of those 4 parents could actually stop a marriage. So this is why people would often marry, you'll see they're about 21, 22 years old, because it's like now the parents can't say, no, this marriage is not going ahead. So the Mary time, it's referencing the divine feminine again.
Yes.
Words like mercy. So it's mer, which is the French word for sea, and then sea obviously is the English word. So you've got to see the waters, the mercy. You've also got it encoded in America. It's the old name for Wales is Mercia. I could really go off on a
Mercia is the old it's an old section of England as well. Like that early just before we met tonight, Ginger had sent me a video done by a guy.
Oh, my heart.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant stuff. I mean, he's talking about old England and how it's separated up into because it was covered with water, so it was all waterlogged, which makes complete sense to me. The fact that it was all these islands rather than the way it is now with one land, and um, and then he's talking about the tribe of Dan, and he's talking about how a lot of areas of Scotland have got the word done in it, like Edinburgh or um, Dundee, or it's talking about this word done. Then he's talking about all these different associations. It's brilliant, brilliant stuff.
And
Anyway,
I see it as being Dan, and it's sort of another form of Dan, the tribe of Dan, the
I
lost
know,
tribe of Dan,
I know.
and the Tuatha did not all connected, and it's all King Arthur. It's all, I think, our story. I think.
But I think James is, I mean, I've heard James say before something about the Scottish people. I think it was James that said it. Something about the Scottish people, something special about them. There's a lot of
Yes,
talent comes out of Scotland for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I'm not
Scota,
Scot. I'm not
Scota,
Scottish.
Scota comes to mind, and well, you're close though. You're near Hadrian's Wall. You know,
Yeah.
those
The
borders are
no.
what we've agreed upon recently,
The
but it's not the only border that we've had. The landscape has changed tremendously over and over again.
yeah. Oh well, the Scottish called Geordie's Scotsman with the brains bashed out.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's what the Scottish people call Geordies. Scotsman with the brains bashed out.
Oh
Very,
no!
very pleasant. Anyway, I'm sure it's a joke.
Or yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
No,
Sarcasm, right?
it's just a joke. It's just a local joke.
Yeah,
But I'm sure all Scottish people don't believe that way. But was it you that said that, James, about the Scottish being special?
Yeah, when you look at the population for Scotland, it's something like I think 5, 6 million. But if you look at particularly in the 19th century, the number of inventors, engineers, it's disproportionate to the number the population in general. But you reminded me of something else. I looked at the word Hadrian. It's I think it's in Gaelic. It's very close to Hedron, and think of the collider.
yes, that's right.
Mm,
Thank you. Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
there's
very true.
the picture that's actually now starting to emerge is the new world is actually the old world. Now, the common theme that links everything, good and bad, is water. So, if you were to create a flood, so only the higher land remains, you're already starting to herd people into smaller areas. And you can see the way water has been used as the currency, liquid and frozen assets, and all this side of it. But it's flourishing. It's florid. It's Florida. It's the Gulf Stream. Now, on that east coast of the United States and Canada, you have a tribe called, or did have a tribe called the Micmac tribe. Well, the Mic is the Irish, the Mac is the Scottish, and they actually wear tartan. And when you go into Scandinavia, because they were very light skinned and blonde haired, when they're starting to move into that more tropical climate, they need some sort of sun blocker. So they used a red ochre so they would appear as red skinned. But the picture that's actually emerging is you had these nations in what became America that were linguistically united. So you had black, brown, red, and white all in perfect harmony, like it's described in Atlantis. But then you've got, well, it's basically a war party. In 1491, the Moors, which probably take their name from because they moored ships, possibly airships, when they landed, and we're often described things in the most visually instantly recognizable. So a football team, you'd say, oh, they're Rangers or Celtic supporters because of the colours. You don't actually know the people, but you group them and identify them by the colours they're wearing.
Yep.
1491, the Moors are driven out of Spain. 1492, you've got this Christopher column burst with an Irish navigator. For about 900 years prior to Columbus, there was trade going using that Gulf Stream. So it probably went round in a circle across to Florida, and you've got a place called Guatemala. Well, Guatemala is the name of Buddha. Maya is the mother of Buddha. So hence you've got Guatemala. You've got the creeks, which take their name from the creek. If you take the River Nile, flip it over, turn it up the other way, overlay it on the Mississippi, and if you can see, you've got the word ISIS in Mississippi, you've got Arab in Caribbean, Haiti is Hades. There's your twin pillars. They
Wow.
swapped everything up. This comes from a channel called Old World Florida. It's amazing, and what's just come out with the use of LiDAR in Guatemala, they found over 1,000 settlements linked with this network of roads that are more than 2,000 years ago. In Florida, there has been discovered skeletons, which they did DNA testing on, 7,000 years old, and they're European.
Wow.
The haplo of a lot of these tribal people comes from France and Germany. They have muddled everything up and twisted everything. As Jason on our kayaks calls them, it's the tiny hats. The only ones that had the infrastructure in every nation. So everything would have gone through merchant trading routes, all the information and disinformation.
Oh, surely
And they're
it's
not.
crazy.
And then you think about,
I had somebody
well,
visit me today, and we were just talking, and we were just saying that there's so much disinformation out there now. Oh, that it's really, really hard to discern any truth because it's just you haven't got all you've got is your like spidey senses to sense what's real, and other things, just like you're saying with language, the way that they've named things. And with that naming of things, they've actually given clues in relation to the truth of that reality.
Well, the Mi'kmaq, that was an interesting perspective. And I often wonder about the word Acadian, which is a big part of that story in that area. And that's my homeland, New Scotland, Nova Scotia.
well,
And my
Arcadian.
my great grandfather, Acadian. So there's two ways of spelling it, I've learned. The way that traditionally we spell it in Nova Scotia is Acadian, and but there's another spelling, AKK Adian. And yeah, definitely am interested in that area for obvious reasons because of my heritage. But I wanted to share that an ancestor was one of those Irish captains of a ship bringing the Irish workers um, over to Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Cape Breton, St. Peter's particularly. So that was of interest to me to find that I had an ancestor who was responsible for transporting, but he also, it was well documented. There was a story that he allowed the Irish workers to come into his home and worship. He said, you don't have to hide in the woods. And I thought that was really nice. But the locals didn't, and they tried to burn him out of his home, and it was quite a scene. And he fought and won the right to have them practice their religion wherever they may choose. And so I think that's a great story. But he continued to do that. He continued to bring the workers over. And I think at that time, many of the workers saw it as an opportunity. I think they were fooled into thinking it was the land of, the land of Oz, right? Uh, or whichever they chose. They let them think that they had a choice in the matter.
No kidding.
It's also interesting.
Well, you, what we've actually got is a story of a group called Anuna, which was was sort of handed down, as it were, to the Arcadian. So if you combine Anuna and Arcadian, you get Anunnaki,
Anunnaki.
which is, but that is a recent term, but that is a play on words, because if you say it slowly, I can tell you who the Anunnaki are. It's and you are key. You are all a key. It's
Yes.
something inside. The other interesting sort of route that's worth looking at, compare the Greek and Roman statues. The Greeks have got beards. The Romans are clean shaven. You've also got Berbers, which is the word for beard, and hence you get the word barber come out of that. And you look at the civilizations that have got beards compared to those that haven't. So if we go up to Scandinavia, we come to a place called Finland, which in their own language on the postage stamps is Suomi. So you've got Phoenician and Sumer. English is not a new language. It's an angle of light. So you've got one route which went north, which is the runic carvings. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at a head, the way the sunlight hits the headstone and the inscription, the shadows will bring out those letters. Then you've also got the phonetic root as well of the language. So English is an intersection. It's a cross between the runic and the phonetic joined back together again. Because English has been promoted as like the language for the world because it is the most effective spellcaster.
I would completely agree with that. And
I
uh,
agree as
and
well.
and it's even embedded in the language in itself, you know? Like it's been a deliberately created language because there's just too many coincidences in it.
You've got some
I
other
fully,
beautiful clues. Ireland
yeah.
is air, the Emerald
Island,
Isle. So yeah, it's
air.
referencing the traditionally it was the place that the wealthy sent their children to be educated, which you can see where they flip that round in more recent years, and the Irish are like always the joke of it as being stupid. Um, but then you've got the Isle of Skye, the present United Kingdom, not the first United Kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt, well and truly sits under the Pharaohs, even today.
Well, and
So
back to Scotland, there's Scota, which is said to be the daughter of was it King Tut or one of the pharaohs?
yeah, I can't actually off the top of my head remember, but yeah, Queen
I think
Scotia. I think
I think that's pretty important because there's that Scotia Scotland connection in the word Scota, Scotia, Scotland in terms of like the origin story.
well, this is where you've got Nova Scotia. It just means New Scotland in Latin, basically.
Correct. Yeah. But
But
it
there's
wasn't
a
like
lack of
that before. I do think like the tartar, the Tartarian, they use tartar sauce there and they use the tartan. And, so I do not know that
Mm.
we have the true history still. And Kurimeo Ahua is bringing a lot of great information forward about our ancestry. He's a brilliant genealogist and he is searching in every direction and showing that we are certainly not who we think we are.
Mm.
We are wise to be curious. Again, back to the reasoning, all the reasoning and all of the studying and memorizing of all the facts and that flood of information that's hitting us right now because we're in an air sign energy and the water will not come. It won't be the water this time, it'll be the air. And so it'll be a flood of thoughts. And it's already happening with 7 seconds, move on to the next thing, TikTok, TikTok, you know, It's already happening. So it's very important for us to take the reins of our thoughts and guide ourselves accordingly, you know, especially in this time because of that flood that we're experiencing right now. We will get our belief systems wiped, I think, because of that reasoning energy that we've become more comfortable with, but it's fake. It's not real. It's a story. It's not the story. And I think this is what we're about to find out, that there's obviously always going to be at
Okay.
least two stories, has to be at least two ways of seeing it in this reality.
You just provoked a thought with me, right?
Yes.
Which is that I've noticed that in my life, I had ex repeat experiences. So I had a period where I did this or a period where I did that. And then as it came forward in time, I re-experienced, revisited that, but it was always a lesser period of time. So say for instance, there was a time where I was really into my art, really into painting. And I got into that and did that for like 3 years. And then I stopped doing it. I was not into it. So I stopped doing it for like a year. And then the next time I got into it, rather than being into it for 3 years, I was into it for 3 months. And then I stopped doing it for, say, another year. And then the next time I revisited it was for 3 weeks. And then the next time that I revisited it was for 3 days. Has anybody, have either of you noticed that type of A, recurring pattern, and B, diminishing time inside that recurring pattern?
Hmm.
Have you?
The diminishing time, not so much, because for me, the time has become a greater illusion than ever. I'm so time challenged. It's hard for me to really be in the time. But I do, I get what you're saying, Kim. I just think that what was 3 weeks before could have felt like an eternity. And now it's 3 days is sufficient, but again, it's about satisfying the need. It's filling the need. We will cycle back every seven. So every 7 years, we talk about the 7 year itch. I doubt you'll be able to see it if I draw it. So I won't even try. But there's a U chart that Steiner uses. And every 7 years, so the first 7 years, we're fully being programmed by our caregivers. And then we cycle into the next. And so the first 7 years, we're pure spirit energy. I hasn't arrived yet. And then the next 7 years, the child will start to identify as I. And we see less and less of that spirit child energy that's being, you know, formatted, if you will, and the formative years. And and then we get into the 14th and into the 21st cycle. And then so cycles of seven. At the 21st cycle, we're presumed to be grown, but then we do cycle back down around. So we get up to 49 and then we cycle back. So in our 50th, in that next cycle, the 49 to 56, it will feel like, and the experience will be quite similar in nature to the experiences that you had when you were 21. I'm not sure it's making any sense, but like when we get to the 21 years, when we get to our adult years, we go back and we learn lessons again. So we may not have the same characters in our life, but you're bang on about like the cycles keep coming back around, and each time it requires less time, I feel, and for us to learn and absorb what it is that we need to learn because we've already spent so much time mastering it in a previous time, but we won't always want it. It'll be an energy of a craving, a need. I don't know why I need this right now, but that's what I'm going to do, and it's cyclical. It's all part of the divine energy of spirit. Big long answer.
Yeah,
I know.
big
I
lump.
know there. It's the markers are the when you get the adult teeth, which is roughly about 7 years old, puberty at
That's
14,
right.
the coming age 1. But you've also got this 30-year Saturn return. So if you live long enough, well, this is why it says about Abraham and Sarah, and she gives birth at 90. It's the third Saturn return. It's not a physical birth, and it's not one
No.
character. It's again masculine and feminine again, but it's been taken literally as a historical story. Well, it is his story. It is the creator. It is like a child. You've created something. Now you lose yourself in it. You're playing with that doll's house or those cars as a child, and you forget about the entire world. You're creating with your imagination. So by extension of that, the creator has created and now wants to experience what has been created. So that's why we are co-creators. We are that Humpty Dumpty that had a great fall, but all the king's horses and all the king's men cannot put Humpty to get together again. We are fractalized pieces of that heart of glass
Yeah.
that are looking at each other, reflecting each other. We're like a huge, great Christ all chandelier, basically. It's a
Crystal, I
beautiful thing.
like that you said that. Crystal. That is us. We are crystal,
Crystal
liquid
chandelier.
crystal.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, that is us. That's us.
The other
We are
way
the
of
crystal.
expressing thing crystallizes in the mind, and you can see this pattern. The easiest way is like I have an idea, so I go to an architect who will draw up a blueprint, who then gives it to a builder, and it's gone from my imagination to a solid physical object. Everything in this reality started, there's nothing made that was not first made. So it's all created in the mind.
Yeah, I
All
agree.
this is basically what we're in is basically a huge great filter. And if you look at the pattern, it's like education. It's filtering out those that it can use that have got the creativity. It's filtering out those that it can put on the drug addiction route, the prison route, and those all sort of every spectrum in between. It's all a filtering. It has to be that way because if you've created a lie and you've got to build lie upon lie upon lie, you're going to be fearful of anything that might expose that. So you've got to keep tabs on everything. So probably every great artist was absorbed into this or that secret society to some degree. I mean, people will say Rudolf Steiner was a Freemason, Manly P. Hall was a Freemason. Whether do you think the system would ever let them run free without wanting to keep tabs on them?
But they had to. They had to make them this way. Otherwise, and then they had to tell them the truth or show them the truth. And then then these guys could tell the story back to us. So reveal to us the true nature of our reality. So they could show us in the form of breadcrumbs the true nature of reality, but they were never allowed, once they had the secret knowledge, they were never allowed to tell us the truth. They could only show us a version of it through their artistic license, be it through painting, be it through art, be it through music, be it through lyrics, be it through presentation, movies, whatever. Um, I mean, I
And the
really,
truth is a real different thing for us to
yeah,
talk about as well. It's a huge energy, I feel.
yeah.
And, it's a lot of times based on perspective.
Anyway, guys, listen,
But
we've
I
been
will say, I think
talking.
that all of the Freemasons were orphans, and that was part of their indoctrination. At one time, their ancestry started in an orphanage, I believe, a great number of them,
Mm,
and so they're silent. And there's I don't know, the devil's in the details. I think that there's good and bad in everything. And I know Freemasons, and I don't think that they're all fully aware of the depths that this occult knowledge goes. I don't think they have that knowledge. I think they have a very superficial understanding of it. And but they've been sworn to secrecy, like a full-on allegiance can't break.
No. Right. I'm gonna start winding it up. Is there anything else either of you want to say before I stop recording?
We could go for days.
I'm only going to stop recording. I'm not going to necessarily cut it off, but if we just, otherwise it's going to be like 2 hours long. Well, it's going to be close to 2 hours long anyway. So anything else you want to say?
Well, I did enjoy this, and I would love to do this again. And I
Okay.
would like to bring attention back to Stephen J.D. Beattie. He's got such an important message for us to learn about, and he's done a tremendous amount of work. And anybody out there that's listening, I think you might like his story.
Okay. That sounds good. James, anything you want to say before you go?
Yeah, everything's a play on words. So you've got Angel Michael. Now he's had to come into this reality. So he's a Michael Angelo. So just look at the Sistine painting. You've got
Very clever.
it's visualized. So you've got God that is sitting in the pineal gland, and if you count how many other characters are in that pineal gland, there's 12. So it's the cranial nerves. Now, this depiction of God as the Father has got his hand reaching out. Adam is sort of laid back and sort of putting his hand out. But look closely. It's showing you right there. There is nothing between God because they're not touching. And that is what it's saying. This is what we're looking for. Ultimately, you're looking for not a thing and nothing because you'll see the phenomenon, but you'll never be able to see it because you are it. And the it is the informed technology that these physical bodies are a type of technology. They are a design. They're a biological design. And the I, with the technology, like, oh, you think you're it? Well, yeah, we all are it if we acknowledge it inside ourselves.
I do wonder about that word a lot, it. And I think, isn't it a nice day? You know, what is it anyway? I feel like it is the energy of God, the generator, operator, and destroyer of this experience.
Who is? It's I and spirit.
Correct.
Is it?
Here we are in crystalline, liquid crystal
I
form
just, I just,
and trans transforming all over the place.
with that Sistine Chapel picture that you're talking about, right? I always
Yeah.
feel as if God's reaching out, but Adam's sitting there and he can't even be bothered to lift a finger. Can you see that?
Antipathetic.
He can't even be bothered to lift his
Yeah.
finger, whereas God's reaching out. And I thought that
That's so
that's
true, Kim.
uh, just the way it hit
It's
me.
pretty late.
He's pretty laid back.
It
That's what I
says in
mean. He
that sort of creation.
can't even bother to lift a finger. It's like, no, maybe that's where we're getting to. Maybe that's where we're heading to. I don't know.
Well, that would be ideal for some people because there's great interest in controlling us, I feel.
Yeah,
uh, you know, if they can control us, we are a battery. We are the salt battery. You know, they're talking about this technology. We are that ancient technology. We are the salt of the earth. We are the batteries. We are the life force energy. We are the batteries. The free energy is here. It's us. And they harvest it all the time by taking our attention into football or, you know, whatever politics or, you know, whatever they can capture us. You know, it's a net, it's a web. And it's important for us to really focus on our energy, our thought energy wisely.
Well, it's not surprising that Adam is so sort of laid back because he's exhausted. I mean, if you look at the Genesis story, God creates everything and says to Adam, "You name it all." So that would be quite a thing if you like if you were to take the story that literally. If you were the first one, that would be very exhausting to go around naming everything And the evidence of that is just look at the language, how complex it is, how everything has double meanings to it, or more than two meanings.
Generation ISIS.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what comes out of all this. Anyway, yeah, I suppose we ought to stop really.
Yes, could go for days.
Keep on muting myself and going, whoops, I'm muted.
Here we go again. We started with a great laugh, and I hope everybody appreciates some of what we shared. It was fun.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I'm just gonna stop recording, but don't hang up. Bye.